What's up, everybody? I'm going to continue with this drawing. I just got finished listening to a whole bunch of lectures and quotes, interviews from Steve Jobs, obviously former CEO of the current company I work at. Obviously, I just work in retail, but it still feels great to be connected to such a powerful entrepreneur, a great thinker, a great innovator, you know, in the sense of business, innovator in the sense of business. Like, he's not, St. Thomas Aquinas in the sense that he understood deep philosophical understanding of God and nature. He's not that kind of guy. He understood a little bit, I mean, not a little bit, but quite a bit about computers, but had the business savvy to put together a fantastic team at Apple and start creating wonderful products. And it's interesting, a lot of people seem to agree and feel that there's something about Apple that was lost when Steve Jobs passed away, or even when he started to slow down as a innovator at Apple. The way he gave keynotes when he was a younger entrepreneur, and when I say younger entrepreneur, I mean he was already wildly successful at Apple. Putting out millions of computers and having his factories done already. But he talked a little bit about how he and Wozniak just started out just building these computers at home for their friends, and then that's when they decided, they were already doing something that they like to do, and then they decided, okay, we have to figure out a way to manufacture these if so many people want them. And so he started with his passion project, and then built it from there. And it's interesting because in my life, I have failed a lot of my passion projects, and it's not because, what I'm realizing, it's not because they were bad projects per se, but because a lot of the time they never even got off the ground because I was too distracted. I was trying to do too many things, a lot of useless things, spreading myself thin via my own just addictive habits, random video games, switching from game to game. Like, I even told myself, or I even tried to compete, at these games, and I could have been successful at it. I had the opportunity to be, but I would just, when I got tired of training in one game, it didn't feel the same. It felt like work, and I didn't have that work ethic. I could have kept training in the game and been successful and been a great competitor, but I would jump from game to game because I felt, good about coming up with new strategies and personal expression, and not about the real science of winning. Nowadays that I'm separated from video games, I still have to take that competitive drive and that innovative mind and apply it to something that is going to really contribute to the life of my family now, and I have to do it pretty much without risk. Now, I understand that, looking at the success story of Steve Jobs, obviously he was taking a lot of risk, but there wasn't a whole lot of risk in the sense that he was business savvy and that he was able to adapt, really. Not that he had a plan and had a perfect vision from the get-go, but that he was savvy and he was adaptive and knowledgeable about the certain principles that would take him to success. And that's good. That's great. And do I have that now? Well, I think I do, in the sense that I've learned and listened to a whole lot of this kind of stuff for a while now. But it's a matter of putting it into practice now. And the way I want to build my own business, if we're going to look at it as starting with some kind of passion project and just being great at it and then letting that expand, it has to be beautiful and attractive enough that people will be like, hey, I want that. So there's a whole lot of little strategies that I've already come up with. For example, I did a big mural at a church, and I told myself I'm going to do it for free as a donation to the church. But what I'm going to do is take advantage of that exposure, because I've never really done anything exposure before except for this. I try not to take free work, but this is a church. I mean, I love that parish, and I took a couple months, I think 3 months, to really make a good mural painting there. This one, I guess, should be less floaty and kind of more sitting on a little bit more sitting on the hand. And I told myself I would use that as marketing for myself, whether it's looking for students as an art teacher, or just looking for more artwork to do that people might request, whether it's drawing or painting of a saint or something like that. I haven't really taken advantage of that because I guess it's hard for me to step out of my comfort zone and take the risk and really jump into marketing. But that's a big thing that I just need to do. I started engaging with one of my friends actually last night about doing short form content on TikTok and YouTube, YouTube Shorts. And it's something that I've been avoiding, not really purposely, but just because it's not in my comfort zone. Even doing this here, this type of artwork, this type of commission work right here, it's my comfort zone right now. I can do it without thinking. I mean, I'm talking about something completely different and I'm still making decent line art, right? So, I could probably do better if I was fully focused, but I want to focus on overall the general picture of what I want to do with my life. And that's always been more of my favorite type of content, especially since I've been streaming on Twitch and YouTube. I like talking about life, how I want to get better and move forward, and then execute it. And the execution part is going to be the part that's always been hard for me in life, because I always have all these ideas and I never put them into practice. So now it's time to put them into practice. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to focus on like making this commission good, really. I want to finish it, send it over, keep good time. But at the same time, thinking about, I'm here, you're on YouTube and you're here listening to me, and make that time valuable for you. And again, that I don't have the greatest plans and I don't do a whole bunch of editing, but my friend is going to help me. Like, he's helping me a little bit, like think of, hey, here are these ideas that people are doing nowadays to make short type of content. So he said, collect B-roll, go out into the street and tell your story and find things, that you find interesting in life, that you find visually appealing or whatever, or inspiring, and just film them and just collect that footage and not plan so much like, the storyboard or the vision or whatever. Collect the footage and make something out of it. Write a short script, with some kind of theme or message, and then share it and edit it, piece it together. Just piece these things together, collect the parts and then piece them together. And I guess that's one way of doing it. And that's kind of how drawing works too. It's like you have the general idea and you sketch it out, and it's like this vague thing, but eventually it becomes something that more like what you intended, and possibly even better than what you intended, because as you get into the detail, you start seeing, hey, these are things that I didn't foresee from the get-go, but they're very satisfying details. So I feel like building business is going to be kind of like that. I have this general idea that I want the beauty of life, my life, to inspire people, to connect with people, and to help them find the right way to live too. But it's what I'm realizing, I've done some teaching work, but it's not going to come from me teaching people, telling people how to live, especially because my life as an example has not been very good at all. There's some people who might disagree. There are some people who look up to me already, but I would imagine that those people don't really know the fullness of my dark side, and everyone has a dark side, and mine has been really bad. I'm breaking free from it, and I suppose until I've really continued that process, my life is not going to be an act to follow. I would like for it to be. And what I'm realizing is that, there's this ego that we all have, that I was doing a lot of things for recognition, for approval, and that is very bad. And it's weird in the sense that it never motivated me, because I suppose my soul knew that that's never what I really wanted deep down. Approval is just something, it's a nice little constellation that helps us move forward, and maybe tells us that, hey, maybe you're doing the right thing. But it's never the thing we should fight for in and of itself. We're approved of things because we're good, because the things that we do or say are good, or think are good. And you start to realize, or I start to realize, it's not for me, it's not for myself. And I started even thinking, okay, even the clothes I wear, I used to be so particular about the clothes I wear, in the sense that I didn't want to look formal. I didn't want to look what people defined to be quote-unquote presentable. I was like, why? It's those types of clothing, button-up shirts and all that, suits are so uncomfortable. Why can't I dress in a way that's like suitable for function? I want to play at recess. I don't need to dress well to, you know, go to a Smash Bros tournament and play video games for a living, you know? And I kind of live this sort of grubby life, you know, not even thinking of something like personal hygiene, right? Do I want to wear deodorant and take a shower because I want people to approve of me? No, I mean, that's not a strong motivation. It's just, for me, it just wasn't enough. But if I think about, okay, this is good for others, for me to smell good, like something that simple, and then it draws me out of that cave, that pit of the ego. It's like, okay, I don't have to do this for anyone's approval, but it's still a good idea because it benefits the people around me. And that's what I really want. I want to help people. And so if I'm able to kind of bring back these sort of, you know, mundane efforts, things like washing the dishes. I mean, washing the dishes is important. It's good. It has to be done. And in the past, you know, the child like me would have been like, well, it's boring. It doesn't engage me, therefore I shouldn't, you know, I don't want to do it. But it's important. It benefits others. And I suppose for anyone to be drawn out of themselves and into the service of the good, whether it's the greater good or the good of a specific person, I don't know if we need to be like perfect in and of ourselves. Obviously not perfect, but like self-actualize just enough so that we are satisfied with our own life. But I think for a lot of people, that kind of is how it becomes. They're searching and waiting for satisfaction. I think not knowing that what I believe real satisfaction comes from living for others. And I suppose there's a lot of people that might disagree with this. And this is where, for me now, it's become important to live the life, I suppose, as proof. And again, not for my own sake, not for my own ego, but because I really believe that living for others is a good idea. It sounds so intuitive. I mean, so it sounds so simple, right? It sounds kind of cliche almost, but if you look at your own life, and if I look at my own life in the past and think of what I was doing, who was I living for, it's clear to me that I was not demonstrating these values. So now it's time for me to demonstrate. So for example, I'm doing this commission. I want it to be really good. I think the line art looks, you know, good enough. It looks fine. Is it my maximum level of like skill? Maybe not, but it's pretty good. And I'm pretty satisfied with how the lines are turning out. Are there things I need to change? I think so. And then we'll address them slowly. And I think we're making good time with this. Should we put an eyelid there? Yeah, why not? I think that character is pretty much done, actually. So we'll work on the other one now. We're going to mirror now. Squeeze and flip. Squeeze and flip. It's a flick motion. That I can get used to that. So now what we're going to do is start with the character's hair here. I'm going to start with her eyes because her eyes are a little bit off from the sketch. So not a whole lot of people pay attention to me. And when it comes to, I guess, competing in this crazy competition right now for attention, you know, I suppose I always thought that if I just do really great work, it'll speak for itself. And yes, it will. I believe that it will in the long run. But to get eyes on me, it's like this whole, you know, endeavor of marketing and competing for attention, and it just has to be done right now. That's otherwise a business will never get off the ground, because you're selling a product or service to someone, goods and services. And what is it that I want to contribute? Well, right now, a model for life. Because one of the reasons I'm thinking about this is because if we look at tech companies, computer companies like Apple and Microsoft, and then, you know, the various like Dell, Hewlett Packard, you know, laptop designers, Compaq, that was a name of old that I remember. Steve Jobs mentioned it in one of his in his speeches. I mean, they were developing computers, and computers were machines that enabled people to really set free their ideas. Okay, so now that computers are pretty much ubiquitous and have reached scale, and everyone has one in their pockets, and now that the computers in their pockets, the iPhones and Samsungs, are being optimized more and more and more to what I believe are diminishing returns. I mean, cameras can only get so good, right? Until, you know, you get something like Apple Vision Pro or Meta Quest, and then they become lightweight and become glasses, and then you get AR and VR, and that's still going to continue to do the same thing that computers did as they evolved. Now it's going to enable more freedom, and that's good. But there's more to life than freedom. Not that freedom isn't something we should take for granted. Or not that freedom is something that we should take for granted, because it isn't, obviously. But the question becomes, what do we do with that freedom? And that becomes a question of philosophy and religion. And a lot of times it's not very deep philosophy and religion, or even just morality. Because for a lot of people, including for myself, the edge of morality really, or the final product of the exploration of the moral life and theology is, for me, because I'm a layman and a father and a husband, is ultimately going to be, okay, work hard, take care of your family. Simple. There's nothing wrong with that. And might as well be great at it. Great, like the best. I've always been drawn to high levels of talent. One of my favorite books, I wouldn't say it's my favorite book anymore, but my favorite book from high school. Crazy book, very dark, but it's a book called Perfume, or originally Das Parfum, by a German writer named Patrick Susskind. I don't know how to pronounce the German, but it's about a guy who Jean-Baptiste Grenouille, I think means frog. You know, born in the gutter, literally. I think he was like thrown out in the fish market, and then raised without human connection. And the theme of the story is that, you know, he has an exceptional talent for smell, for isolating what smells are, and then he starts working in perfume industry and the scent industry, like making soaps and stuff. And then he starts to realize, wait a minute, there's a specific scent coming from like young virgins, and then he becomes obsessed and starts to use them for himself, and then like starts murdering them. You know, it's called Perfume Story of a Murderer. And then the story comes to some crazy climaxes, and some weird fantastical things happen. But all throughout the story, the descriptions of the story are very interesting, because it's the nature of the book, like the plot is one thing. But when you read it, it gets so deep into describing smell. I've never read anything like that. And honestly, I've already felt that my sense of smell is like somewhat keen. Not in the sense that I think I have a better sense of smell than other people, that my nose detects more. I just have a big nose, I guess. But I'm able to recognize what the smell might be. And I think reading that book in the past might have done something to my brain, where it's like, hey, maybe I feel like I have a talent for this, even if I really don't. I don't really know. I'm sure there are people in the world with very keen noses. Basically like truffle hogs or something. I don't have a nose like that. But it did something to my recognition of smells. That's like, okay, maybe I am able to detect what a smell is, or what an ingredient is, from my experience in cooking or whatever. Anyway, he had a unique talent that he used for his own dark purposes. Now, could he have used that talent for something great? Obviously, like he could have made just the most wonderful perfumes and mastered the world of scent, but instead he used it for this crazy plan. And the culmination, the climax of the book is very fantastical, a really crazy conclusion of the book. really wild. But one of my favorite books because of how engaging it was as far as the description of smell. And he had a world-class talent for what he was doing. And world-class talent has always drawn me in for some reason. I think it's because it's beautiful, obviously. Because it shows something about the human spirit that wouldn't be revealed otherwise. You know, a talent like someone like Michael Phelps, someone who's just the best at what they do. For me, as a gamer, it was following Mango, the Super Smash Bros. Melee player. I always thought he had a talent that was so ahead of his time, and was playing the game at another plane of like thinking than most people. And nowadays we can kind of explain, we have the tools and experience to explain like the methods that he was doing, the type of tactics he was doing, you know, back when he was surpassing everyone in like 2008. But back then it was inexplicable. We just thought, okay, he's just talented. We don't know what he's doing because none of us have the theory to explain this kind of power in the game. And I think the mystery of that kind of talent has drawn me in. And then I started reading, you know, I want to read like Miyamoto Musashi, like, you know, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Like, were there tactical stuff in these books that made them so famous that are like, you know, beyond normal understanding? Probably not. I mean, they're probably broken down in such a way that normal people could understand them, but demonstrated or are written down by people who demonstrated that life. Sun Tzu obviously probably participated in these wars as a general and as a leader and as a shot caller. Miyamoto Musashi, a duelist, a tactician, who probably, you know, I mean, not probably, but definitely lived out the stuff that he wrote down in his Book of Five Rings. I mean, I haven't read these things yet. I don't know if and or when I will get around to them. And then there's people who are at the forefront of technology. I mean, people like at OpenAI. There's Andrej Karpathy, who's good at teaching this stuff. There's Stephen Wolfram with a new kind of science, looking at cellular automata. And then athletes like David Goggins, who push himself to just ungodly limits, and beyond his own limits, and outlined this was my mindset going through this kind of stuff. You know, there are other people, you know, who are doing, you know, ultra marathons, but none of them told the story in the way that Goggins did, and none of them quite have a story like Goggins. So it's like, okay, this is in his own sense, a world-class talent, and a lot of his talent is like the mental game of personal athletics. You know, whether it's pull-ups or ultra marathons. So I've always been drawn to that. Like I look at a painter like Bob Ross. Obviously one of a kind, best at what he did, not because he was the greatest painter in the world, but he was the greatest art content creator in the world. And what am I doing right now? Art content creation. And why was he the greatest? I mean, there was quite a few things. He made it personal. He made it fast. He made it accessible. He made it entertaining. He had a great personality. Combine those things and you get Bob Ross, whose content to this day, insanely influential, on every platform, you know, iconic look. There's just a concoction of things that came together and became his legacy. And it's great. It's great. It's wonderful. He's a blessed guy, and he always said, God bless. I always appreciated that about him. Now, for me, it's like, I used to, I guess, ask myself, what is it about me? And I would ask God, Lord, what is it about me that is special? What can I share to people? But I think I'm learning it's not about me. You know, that's a cliched thing to say, but I'm starting to see what it means. It's about love. It's the things, the people that I love, the things that I love to do, the things that are good, that I'm drawn to. And if I'm drawn to enriching my own personal talent that it reaches a world class, then that's good. And I want to do that. And for me, I just gotta, you know, there's one thing where I just lean into my thing, which is, I guess, this, you know, making art and making content and trying to make it good, and you know, doing this and trying to optimize this. But there's also that sense of exploration and challenge and lateral growth, doing things I haven't tried yet. And I speak about all these things so vaguely, but I guess the thing that's not vague is that the fact that I'm drawing. That's concrete, and I can do this well, and I want to do this as the best that I can. So a lot of times for me, I mean, there's 100 tasks to do, a million tasks to do in every moment, and I think it's just a matter of staying in that moment and doing each one well, because I can overwhelm myself by getting ahead of myself, and I already have a million tasks to do, and I think I need to put my mental energy not in planning out my life and understanding these theological concepts or the psychological, philosophical concepts. That will be done naturally over time. That's just how I think. But the practice and execution of these things, that's where I need to be. And I need to allow these things, the goods and the fun of the practice of these goods, draw me out of the cave of my ego. So that's the current challenge. That said, I'm making decent progress here. I'm just going to keep going. But I think as far as sharing the idea that I wanted to share just now, that pretty much concludes it. So with that said, I think I'll pause the recording here, and then we'll continue soon with something else to say. Excuse me. I'm going to keep going here, make sure I can stay on the black. We're finishing up the line art. I'm going to keep time and take a time log. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. God bless. Bye-bye.